So Canada have just fallen 3-1 to Jamaica, failing to qualify for the U17 World Cup. What does it mean? Well, let's talk about it. All right, guys, welcome back to What Does It Mean? It's basically our match reaction. And if you've been on the channel, you may have noticed that we haven't done a match reaction because we've been going live for the games. Kind of worked out for the schedule that we were keeping. And I think that worked well. But we need to talk about this result, Canada falling 3-1 to Jamaica's U17 side, meaning they will not be attending this year's Men's U17 World Cup. And whenever I look at youth tournaments, I always think about, ironically, I have something called the Youth Tournament Pledge. We're not going to judge an entire generation based off of what one team is able to do or the other, vice versa. But if we're going to summarize this tournament for them, if you are unfamiliar, this is how CONCACAF runs its U17s for the men. Because 8 teams qualify, they've separated the top 8 seeds and then grouped the next ranking teams as followed into groups. You win your group, you are en route. So Canada was drawn with the group with Jamaica, who was ranked 11th. Canada was ranked 3rd based off of last year's results. And then they had Aruba and Cayman Islands. And so there's no second place finish. There is no playoff. Just win and you're in. And so we've seen Canada qualify for this type of a tournament before. And the thing that I think is interesting, or at least I'm curious about it, is I think we're going to see ebbs and flows. One of the great things about having a U17 tournament every year is you kind of get to look and see what both sides want to do. Right. And by both sides, I mean, what does a federation want to do? Do they want to put together their best side or do they want to put together their best aged side? Right. So this is a 2026. So 2009s will be the 17-year-olds. And we saw that happen last year for their U17s. And comparing both sides, it's a little bit interesting to see the similarities and differences. I think both sides played well. I think we were definitely there were a lot of names we were excited about on last year's team versus this year's team. We just weren't familiar, right? We had seen U17 players come in other iterations before, right? Richard Chukwu's, right? Guy Persad, right? Kevin Kahn, Shola Jimo. Those were names. There were 2 names that came back from that team here: Captain Stephen Kapoor, and then Van Parker, who was a starting 9. Well, number 10 for Canada. And so it's very interesting to see how they want to treat this. This is going to affect their rankings definitely for the next round, probably meaning we won't be in a top 8 seed, which means we'll be one of those second place teams that are trying to qualify outside, which means we may be with the US. We may end up being with Canada, with Mexico, Costa Rica, even Dominican Republic. But what's the story of this round? The story of this tournament to me is great build up, just lacking the finish. Right? If you had the opportunity, I had fun with it. They were missing a lot of opportunities. And once you got to the Jamaica game, they were putting opportunities on frame, but then they were getting a lot of them saved. And so it's hard to be critical of a team that you see how they look building up. You see the opportunities that they create, but they simply couldn't find their finishing boots. And that's unfortunate because sometimes that's how the ball rolls in football, right? You can have all the possession in the world, but you can look the best, you can create all the chances, but if another team capitalizes on their opportunities, that's all she wrote. And that's what happened against Jamaica. Canada was creating chances after chance, but couldn't get past the goalkeeper, TFC2 goalkeeper, might add, playing for Jamaica. And then 36-minute goal, and then early in the second half, another goal, and then eventually Van Parker wins a penalty. It's 2-1, but then they put it away in additional time, 3-1. So what does it mean for Canada? Well, For starters, it means there's no World Cup. Shane Lemme doesn't get to take another edition of this team to the World Cup, which is unfortunate. Would have been great to see what a new set of group and what a new set of players could do in that next round. But it also means continuing to work and continue to try to find yourself into that next round. One of the fun things I noticed while we were watching the U17s was while that's happening, you see Mexico with a U16 team already going. You see the States with a U16 team already going. Most nations are choosing to stick that age group together and see what they look like. And the one thing, it's not my most favorite of the CONCACAF qualifiers because, I mean, I could have a whole complaint about how CONCACAF just needs to find a simple qualifying method and stick to it in all levels. It's the most simple to understand. It's the most direct. And how they've set it up, they set up well. They set up based off the matchups they think will be the best coming up last. Whether that is in groups, we saw Puerto Rico versus Costa Rica in their final matchup going to a 0-0 draw. We saw the US and Dominican Republic going to a 1-1 draw, but goal difference. And I think that's the thing when we watch the games. That was the difference. Canada, unable to find their finishing shoes, did ultimately doom them. Right? We saw ridiculous scorelines. Costa Rica put 26 on a side because they weren't going to leave anything to chance. In the same group, Canada put 3 against Cayman Islands, while Jamaica put 12. And when you go into these type of matchups, you want as many factors to get through as possible. And Canada didn't have that. They only had one. They had to win the game. But too many mistakes, unfortunately, and the defensive third cost them the victory. So for Canada, it's back to the drawing board. Get the 2010s going on this side. See which players are able to look good. If there are any 2011s on the side, bring them in, see what they're able to do. But it's back to the drawing board. No time to breathe because now it's another generation. To Jamaica, congratulations. They're going back to the U17 World Cup for the first time in a long time. And I think we're going to continue to see these. I think at some point, I do believe every team is going to hit a point where they don't make it through. Right? I think Canada is the cautionary tale in this round. But looking at the matchups that they've had, I think the US one time won't make it. It seems hard to believe, but I think based off how the teams are set up, that will happen. I think Mexico has gotten through, but I think every one of these top 8 teams as they're ranked, I think they all run the risk of not finding themselves in a U17 tournament just because not every age group is going to be as talented. Now, maybe I'm wrong there, but Canada was the first one to go back. Other interesting notes of this, I really do think they miss Louis. He's injured in the first minute of the game. Second minute of their first game against Cayman Islands. And I think if he's there, it helps him a little bit more defensively. And as a fullback, gives you some overlapping. I think they missed him a lot. Also of note, the only 2010 on this roster is Rafi Budd, who is currently playing with the Cardiff Youth City Youth Program and Academy. So Rafi is one of the young ones. He was 15 to come in, and we'll see what he's able to do. But for now, for Canada, it's back to the drawing board. And you guys let me know what you think. They fell short. Not disappointed because not every generation is the same. And because that, I don't think we're going to judge every generation and think, oh, because this one is poor, the entire pipeline is doomed. No. I think every player is going to develop how they will. It's up to the program to find them or get them in the position to succeed. But we'll leave it there. Canada falls short and thus not heading to Qatar this year. Let me know what you guys thought. And as always, I'm going to stop talking right